A Quiet Place Part 2 is an alien horror movie sequel. This movie starts with it being day one, and it kind of gives you some back lore of what these creatures are, and turns out they're aliens as they're falling from space. And quickly after kind of introducing that lore, we go back right to where the first one ends, like literally right there. So basically, after the death of her husband, the mom, just having her child and her two remaining kids, decide they need to pack it up as kind of their little farm home is destroyed and it's not safe anymore. But now they have an idea of how to kind of hinder and defeat these aliens, as the enhanced hearing aid of the deaf girl allows basically like this supersonic frequency to stagger and expose the vulnerable spots of these aliens. So now they're kind of just pushing forward. Well, they get to a spot where kind of traps are laid, and they hit this one trap that's just a bunch of cans that make a bunch of noise. So they start running, and the little boy ends up stepping in a bear trap, and they're introduced to Cillian Murphy, who used to be an old friend of the dad, and he's basically been surviving on his own, as also his family has been murdered. And he's in like this kind of like, I don't know, it's like factory, but there's like soundproof areas in this factory where he's basically been safe. Well, little boy injured from the bear trap, they're wrapping him up. The little girl ends up putting some headphones on them, and they're trying to find a station, which they haven't been able to find a radio station in 450 days plus. They find one, and it's playing this song, which is basically like this transmission for a code saying, "Hey, come across the river." And the little girl kind of debunks it, and she's like, "Look, I want to go across this river to this island because I think it's a safe haven." And she kind of leaves without no one knowing, and the mom's like, "Look, Cillian, you need to go get my daughter, as you're kind of a dick for not ever responding to my husband's transmissions that he was sending out every day, because you were literally like a jump, skip, and a hop away from us. So please, used to be a family friend, save my daughter." And the movie is basically him going to rescue this girl and then trying to find this island. And that is about as much as I'm going to get into, with no spoilers. And of course, the review will have mild spoilers. So, my review of A Quiet Place Part 2. So, this is kind of the downfall of working with children in some circumstances, as the movie starts off on day one, but since this movie is 2 years older than the first movie, the little boy just looks a lot older in a flashback. And on top of that, this movie takes place exactly after the first one. The little boy just looks a lot older, which isn't an issue throughout the movie, but something that kind of was annoying me when it first started. I just instantly seen that, and the little girl looks older too. It's 2 years. There's growth spurts and stuff. Also, the end of the first movie shows basically the farm about to be overran with like 4, 5, 6 of these aliens, and they kind of never touch back on that, which I thought was pretty weird. Besides that, it's literally the same quality as the first one. It's just an insanely good movie and an insanely good sequel, even though the original, in my opinion, is just better. But the second one, nonetheless, is still just really, really good. I feel like when the boy got their bear trap, honestly, what they should have did was killed them off. And I feel like that would have raised the stakes of the second movie. Like in the first one, you knew the stakes were high because that little boy just instantly gets murdered in the beginning. And I don't know, I feel like this one had plot armor. That was just something I think they should have did. They should have just offed the boy, but who knows? I'm kind of crazy. And just like the first one, the writing, directing, producing, all that is done by John Krasinski. So it's just a really good movie. So, with that being out the way, my recommendation for A Quiet Place Part 2. This is highly recommended. I would definitely say the first one is a must watch, and obviously, after watching the first one, you'll want to watch this. But I don't think it was as good as the first one, so that's why it's just a tier lower. But highly recommended. It's still insanely good, as those are basically just a step below a must see. Yeah, so highly recommended for sure, and just a great sequel.